In 1953, 8 men climbed into a storm on K2, knowing others had vanished before them. They came within 3,000 feet of the summit. Then the mountain turned survival into their only objective.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
Towards the end of 1952, Dr. Charles Houston invited me to join an American expedition to attempt K2, the second highest mountain in the world. I had served for some time in northern Pakistan and knew the people and their language. My role was to act as transport officer, take the expedition to base camp, and then join the climbing party. After some difficulty in obtaining special long leave from the Army, I accepted with pleasure and prepared to return north of the passes. K2 rises to 28,250 feet in remote country north of Baltistan. It was first identified as a great mountain by Captain Montgomery in 1856. Only a few attempts had been made. In 1902, Eckenstein reached 21,000 feet on the northeast spur. In 1909, the Duke of Abruzzi tried the southeast ridge and reached about 20,000 feet near a reddish rock, later attaining 21,870 feet on the western spur before abandoning further effort. No attempt followed until 1938, when Houston led an American expedition up the same ridge. By climbing a steep chimney on the reddish rock, Bill House led the route higher, and Houston and Petzold reached about 26,000 feet. In 1939, another American expedition led by Wiesner reached a similar height, but one American and 3 Sherpas, including Pasang Kekuli, were lost during a rescue attempt. 15 years later, Houston returned, determined to complete the work he had begun, and I joined him as the only British member. We assembled in Rawalpindi at the end of May 1953. The party included Houston, Bob Bates, George Bell, Art Gilkey, Dee Molinaire, Bob Craig, and Pete Shonin, with Colonel Atta Ullah joining from Pakistan. Only Houston, Bates, and I had Himalayan experience. From Rawalpindi, we flew to Skardu, passing close under Nanga Parbat. There we hired coolies, repacked loads, and met 6 Hunza porters, selected by the Mir of Hunza. On the 5th of June, we crossed the Indus in Alexander's barge and began the 2-week march. We followed the Shigar Valley and were delayed ferrying loads across the Braldu River on a single goatskin raft. I dismissed a dishonest contractor who withheld porter wages, and from then on progress was better. At Ascole, the last village, older men asked if we knew the Duke of Abruzzi, and younger ones spoke of Shipton. After minor strikes on the Baltoro Glacier, we reached Concordia. When I explained we would turn up the K2 glacier, a coolie said we were going not to base camp, but to Lambar Pahar, Long Hill. We reached our base camp on the 19th of June at about 16,500 feet and kept only the Hunzas. We established Camp 1 through the icefall and pushed up the Abruzzi Ridge to Camp 2 at 19,300 feet and Camp 3 at 20,500 feet. The Hunzas worked as high as Camp 3, but above that the risk of stonefall made further support impossible. Camp 4 stood below House's chimney. With a pulley, we hauled loads to Camp 5 at 22,500 feet and reached Camp Laxgas at 23,400 feet by late July. There, we found the tents and rolled sleeping bags of the Sherpas who had tried to rescue Wolf in 1939. The weather worsened as we climbed higher. The old Camp 7 site no longer existed, so Gilkey and Schoening searched above and found a good site that became Camp 8 at about 25,500 feet. On the 2nd of August, Bates and I joined the others there after a 10-hour climb in a storm. We had food and fuel for 10 days and stood less than 3,000 feet below the summit. Our plan was to establish Camp 9 and attempt the summit without oxygen. Instead, the storm continued. One tent was blown away and 8 men crowded into 3 small shelters. When the weather briefly improved, we planned further movement, but that morning, Gilkey collapsed with pain in his leg. Houston diagnosed thrombophlebitis. We immediately abandoned all plans of ascent and attempted to carry him down. An avalanche threat forced us back. On 10th August, we tried again by a new route, but after hours had descended little more than 400 feet. During the lowering near Camp 7, one climber slipped and 5 of us were pulled off the slope. Pete Schoening held the entire fall on a single belay. We survived, though Houston was briefly unconscious and Bell suffered severe frostbite. Art was left anchored on the slope, but when 3 of us returned to help him, a small avalanche had taken him away. That night at Camp 7 was spent cramped and injured, sharing the last tea we could make. The next day, we began the slow descent. 4 days later, we reached Camp 2, where the Hunzas met us with food, care, and tears. At base camp, we held a memorial service for Art. George Bell was carried on a stretcher all the way to Skardu. We left Skardu by air, passing Nanga Parbat once more. We had failed on K2, but we were alive after 10 days trapped above 25,000 feet. The mountain had not broken us, and the bond between us was stronger than before.